I can clarify that.
Hey, you know what? You never know when you're going to be at quiz night.
I know, I was wondering.
Okay, Mayor, we are live on YouTube.
Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 7:03. Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty, so I will now call tonight's meeting to order. We have an agenda in front of us. Does anybody have any additions to the agenda? Okay, I have one for 7.3, and that's security fencing for the Eco Center. And I also have one for closed session, and that's 13.1. And that will be under advice from officials. Okay, seeing no others, just a motion to accept the agenda as amended, please. Councillor Brown?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor of that motion? Carried. All right, we'll move on to number 3. We have a delegation, 3.1. Rocky Pride Group, Haley Hellam. Welcome, Haley. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. So again, my name is Haley. I'm here with Rocky Pride Organization. I'm hoping that you've all got some slides there perhaps in front of you.
We do.
Wonderful. So Rocky Pride, we'd like to start off by just acknowledging that we are situated on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, and Nakota Sioux. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. This year, June is Pride Month. It's recognized internationally and nationally as Pride Month worldwide. And this year, we're celebrating Pride alongside the really devastating news from Kamloops to Siklephum. And we wish to express our love and support to the Two-Spirit and wider Indigenous communities. In February of 2020, you folks, this council here, voted unanimously to ban conversion therapy, the practice of conversion therapy in Rocky Mountain House. For me, that was an incredible win, sending a clear message, particularly to our young people, that those that identify as Two-Spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer, those are identities that are not to be fixed. So today we're approaching again in the hopes that the town of Rocky Mountain House might add to this message. So we've got a proposal for you, an installation that we'd like to add to our community. We believe that this installation says, "We see you and you're welcome here." So I've got here in front of me now a picture of our proposed installation. It would be located at the public library. This place was chosen sort of in partnership with the library, the Rocky Native Friendship Center, as well as members of the LGBTQ2S community. And the library really represents a hub in our community, in all communities, and a place of gathering for families and for individuals across the age spectrum. The design has been inspired and has been intended to honor the communities represented by 2 important pride flags. The One Progress Pride flag it's the 6-color rainbow that has really come to represent the queer community. And it includes a 5-color chevron that really reflects the beauty and the great diversity of the 2S LGBTQ population, and specifically recognizes the inclusion of and contributions by Black, Indigenous, and people of color to the gay rights movement. It also reflects the Two-Spirit Pride flag. That's where we're seeing the 2 feathers. They each represent 1 male and 1 female residing in the same body. And this flag celebrates the belonging of Indigenous people within our Pride community. This installation, there would be no cost at all to taxpayers. In fact, we've already been able to secure the funds for this project through the Evergreen Co-op. They have generously donated 12 gallons of paint that would be more than enough to to make this installation happen. We've also received a donation from West Central, their Gay Straight Alliance Saga. They've donated enough of their own funds through their own fundraising for the paintbrushes and all the supplies we would need to have this occur. We've got volunteers that are excited and are ready through donors, for our partners, our allies, to actually install this project. And if we were to receive approval with moving ahead with this installation, we've already got that group of volunteers. They're excited, they're lined up, they're ready to go with paintbrushes. The volunteers are made up of members of the 2S LGBTQ population, as well as there are allies. And with your approval, we would hope to be able to install this installation during the month of June, which again is nationally and internationally recognized as Pride Month. And we would invite all of you to join us in the painting of the project if you would be interested. In the event of vandalism or natural wear and tear, our volunteers are committed to the ongoing upkeep and maintenance of the installation, again, with no cost to taxpayers. We just believe that this would just provide a little splash of color and, like other communities, just be a visual demonstration of Rocky Mountain House's commitment to diversity and inclusion. On one of the slides coming up here, you'll see that there are similar installations throughout numerous communities within Alberta, a lot of them cities, of course. And so we've got Airdrie, Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, for instance, Red Deer as our cities, but smaller communities as well, Banff, Fort Saskatchewan, Wetaskiwin, Sylvan Lake, and Samson Cree Nation. So we hope to join those communities in this really visual representation of our commitment to diversity and inclusion. The impact, we believe, is actually really going to be quite profound for members of the community. Conservative findings suggest that about 10% of the population actually identifies as being within the 2S LGBTQ community. And so if we think of just Clearwater County, that's over 1,000 people. And then those individuals have family members as well. They've got friends. And then we can also think about the number of tourists that enjoy our community throughout the year. We do know that LGBTQ members of the population, they're at increased risk. They're increased risk for harassment, for social isolation, discrimination, and even violence. These factors lead to high rates of mental illness, school truancy, homelessness. And so why the rainbow? What is this going to do? Now I've done a research study myself on this, and what I found in the literature is that the research consistently demonstrates that visibility, social acceptance, affirming spaces, all of these things, they enhance feelings of connection, belonging, and community. And the impacts then of this, the connection, the social affirmation, these become really important determinants of health, especially for young people. And they have found in these studies that it was for members of the LGBTQ community, as well as those who weren't, because it allows us to see the diversity of humanity in a really holistic and wonderful way. And the research, again, has found that when our 2S LGBTQ folks feel seen, when they feel validated and accepted by those around them, those rates of the truancy, of homelessness, mental illness actually match that of the general population. So what seems like perhaps just some silly colors actually says, we see you, you're here. And those things can save lives, which is truly incredible, in my opinion. Again, I wanted to keep this presentation very, very short to allow for a lot of time for questions. But I really wanted to thank you all for really just the opportunity of me being here this evening and allowing you to maybe join us in celebrating the diversity that's already here within our community. Thank you again.
Great. Thanks, Haley, for your great presentation. And I would definitely, if this passes, would love to be there when you paint it. And I have one question. How often do you think it will have to be repainted in a year?
So that's a really great question. In other communities, the typical upkeep is to be repainted every 2 years. And so the cost of that can be relatively astronomical when we're looking at things like crosswalks, which is why we've chosen a smaller a smaller area, less cost for paint, for instance, and that it doesn't need to be roadway paint. In the event of vandalism, unfortunately, there has been vandalism in some other communities where they've needed to repaint 2 or 3 times within the first year. They're in response to a little bit of vandalism. There has been spray paint in Airdrie, for instance, where the community needs to come back out and repaint it, I think, a good 3 times before those colors stuck. So I imagine in the first year, in the event that we were to receive some vandalism on the installation, it would probably need to be within that same range, anywhere from 2 to 4 times, I imagine. And then ongoing, hopefully just once a year for touch-ups.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor. Does anybody have any other questions, comments? No? Well, easy crowd here tonight. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Councillor Fraser, were you? No?
Later.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for taking the time, and thank you for putting your effort into bringing this project forward.
Thank you so much again for having me and for hearing me out this evening, everyone.
No, that was great. Thanks very much, Haley. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to 4.1, adoption of the previous minutes. Everybody's had a chance to read those. Okay. Councillor Phillips?
I'll make a motion to adopt the minutes of the June 1st meeting.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. We'll move on to number 5.1. Delegation business, so Rocky Pride Group. So I'll open the floor now for more conversation. Okay, what are council's wishes? Councillor Fraser?
If there isn't any discussion or questions on the project, I would like to move to approve the Diversity Park project from Rocky Pride.
Your worship, so for administration point, can we just add that the town enter into an MOU with Rocky Pride for the Diversity Park project? So that way we just have a easy, simple 1-page agreement, and it's there for future councils and future administration and so forth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Renee, are you good with that resolution? Okay. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Go off. Move on to 6.1, the responsible pet ownership bylaw. I'll turn that over to Mr. Schwader.
Can you hear us?
I'm sorry. Good evening, Council. And I'm here before you tonight in regards to responsible pet ownership bylaw 2021-07. It was presented to Council on May 18th in regards to revising the bylaw. Direction was given to administration to go back to the Roar Society in regards to, in discussion to a kenneling contract. We have met with the Roar Society twice since May 18th. Just want to add that the Roar Society was very professional, accommodating with our discussions. Great to work with. We had some real positive conversation in regards to moving forward. I just want to bring your attention to the financial side. I did include in this report the revenue generated by our animal licenses. In the first report, I did not include that. I included the number of animal licenses as well as the costs, but I didn't include the revenue that we generate from animal licenses in this one. So with our discussions, the Roar Society came back and proposed a lower rate for animal control within the community for a 1-year contract. They came back with a $15,000 fee, so that's roughly $1,250 per month. They would continue on doing the same service within the community and take as, whether it's one animal or 10 animals per month, the fee would still stay the same of $12.50. So the previous one, just for a reminder, is $24,000 that we paid plus the extra cost of $100 or $150 per animal when they went in to the kennel for a 3-day stay. So I have some alternatives there. A new one would be number 3 that I've added. And the recommended alternative one would be, just for your guys' discussion, how you'd like to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Councillor Narang?
Yeah, I feel like this is sort of a nice midpoint to an all or nothing conversation that we were having. So I think that this is actually a really reasonable response and gives us some time to see exactly what we're working with without throwing our hands up and walking away altogether. I think that this is really a good stepping stone to either one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fraser?
And I just wanted to confirm that number 3, so we'd be keeping the bylaw as is. Currently, we wouldn't be removing cats.
That is correct, Councillor Fraser.
And to clarify, cats still need to have a license.
That is correct, Mayor Burke.
Okay. Councillor Phillips?
Thank you for adding in the revenue from animal licenses. Even when I'm looking at the revenue of, say, $20,000, still the vast majority of that is dog revenue as opposed to cat revenue, correct? I'm just by looking at this, it's probably about
That is correct.
75% of the revenue comes from dogs as opposed to cats, whereas probably 80% of the cost of the animal bylaw is for cats and 20% is for dogs.
Correct.
Okay.
And just tell me again, what happens if there's a problematic cat that keeps constantly getting into somebody's yard and they don't appear to be?
Well, presently, whoever the individual is that traps them, I guess, they would take them down to the kennel. Our officers would get involved in regards to whether it has a license or not. Mm-hmm. And then they get charged for if they no license as well as at large. And then it repeats higher every time the offense happens.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Auld?
That's only if it has a tag and only if they can find the owner and only if somebody claims it. Other than that, it just goes into adoption and we pay the cost of it.
That is correct.
Only for 3 days.
Well, 3 days that we have to pay for the town, and then after that, it goes into the ROAR, the Society's adoption program, after a 10-day period.
And that $15,000, that included or negated the $150 for the cats when they come in. That's $15,000 total. There's no more add-ons.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more comments, questions? Councillor Phillips?
I know this is a segue between all or nothing type of mentality. If we did go with the amended contract of $15,000 a year, I think I would still like this to come back to our service level retreat and see how it plays out. Just because it is still a significant budgetary item for cats. I would still like to see it come back to the service level retreat for more discussion after whatever decision we make.
Councillor Fraser?
But is it a significant budgetary item?
No.
It's covered by the animal licenses, which I think makes a lot of sense that the revenue from animal licenses goes to animal control.
Yeah, it's pretty much all covered by licensing. Councillor?
Yeah, because otherwise, if we're gonna separate cats and dogs, then we might as well not have licenses for anybody. Because then why have licensing for dogs if we don't have a problem with dogs and we're not spending that money on animal control related to dogs, if we're pulling in a revenue with dogs and we happen to be using that revenue for cats, to me, it's a wash. That makes sense. It's animal control. Doesn't matter if it's cats or dogs.
Councillor Phillips?
That does make sense. I would still like to have it brought back again to the service level retreat, just to see how it plays out again with our CPOs, how much time all of that goes to. Just to get a true figure.
Well, and I guess just to follow up on that, that would come back in your budget anyways, right?
It'd come back in this budget, but also we'd have numbers as well between, say, July 1st and October or November, whenever we have our service level, that we would be able to see what the numbers are in regards to cats and dogs. But as for the full year, it's $12.50 per month, whether one animal or 20 animals. So,
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, no, I was just going to support the thought that we take a look at it at service level retreat again, just as a matter of course.
So I guess I have no problem with that. We bring everything back to service level review. But I'm just wondering then, are you still thinking then that you would like to see the kenneling costs or the roar fees reduced? Is that?
I mean, right now, I don't have a problem with a $15,000 fee that we're going to be looking at for a cat, taking care of cats. I just want to have it brought back to the service level review we talked about it quite in depth at the last service level review. And at that one, we had decided to take cats completely out of the equation. Now we're going in the middle road, and I just want to make sure that we have another discussion just to see that we've made the accurate decision. That's all.
Yeah. But right now, what is the difference here between the licensing and the new fee, the $15,000?
it varies from year to year, but as of presently for this year, it's roughly $4,000
Okay.
to the good in regards to revenue compared to the 15,000. But just remember, we have a half year for this
Sure.
year. So roughly it's $7,500 for the remainder of this year, $7,500 for the beginning of next year.
Mhm.
So.
Councillor Auld?
I just want to say thanks, Dean. This to me makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate the conversations you had with Roar, and thanks to Roar for coming back with a workable solution. Thank you.
I totally agree, and to even echo on that, Councillor Auld, we see how much effort Roar puts into in this community and how much they fundraise for, and I appreciate that as well. We have some alternatives in front of us. Is there any more conversation? Or what are council's wishes? Councillor Auld?
If there's no more discussion, I'd like to make the motion that council accepts the responsible pet ownership bylaw 16/04V report for information and instructs administration to enter into a 1-year kenneling contract with Roar for an annual cost of $15,000, which would be cost recovered by the annual animal license review.
Revenue.
Revenue, not review.
I knew what you meant. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thanks, Mr. Schwader, for all the work on that. Appreciate that. Keep turning that off. We'll move on to 7.1, the RFD for the Community Kickstart Grant Program. And I'll turn that over to Ms. Hartling.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. In light of the strain that COVID has placed on the community, at the June 1st, 2021 regular council meeting, council approved a $100,000 in community funding through a Kickstart grant program. Council requested that administration prepare a Kickstart grant for the town of Rocky Mountain House to assist community organizations. One of the conditions of the grant is that any money received through the grant would be spent locally to support businesses in the town Administration has prepared a draft document following council's direction and is presenting it for council's review. Just under financial, I would like to point out to council that $100,000 of that will be going towards the Kickstart Grant Program. Funds will be transferred from accumulated surplus, and the budget will be adjusted accordingly to show the transfer. If you look at the document itself, I would like to go through some of the highlighted criteria. Under the criteria listed, the grant is open to nonprofit organizations within the town. And I just wanted to be clear with that because I wanted to make sure that sporting organizations are also available to apply, correct? Yes.
Yeah, as long as I would think as long as they follow the guidelines.
Right, okay. The event must be open to the public and is either a free event or a purchase ticket. The event is being held within the town limits or at a town-owned facility. The applicant must agree to purchase items for the event from a local business unless the product needed is not available within the town. A budget for the event must be submitted with the application. The applicant must adhere to all provincial COVID-19 health regulations when holding the event. The applicant is responsible for any insurance, licensing, or permits. Any funds not used as per the application and approval must be returned to the town. The event must take place in 2021. The applicant agrees to acknowledge the town for funds received. Administration shall assess and award the funds based on criteria established by council. The grant applications will be accepted until December 1st, 2021, or until monies allocated towards the program have been used. Any use of municipal facilities has a monetary value. A final report must be submitted to the town post-event, and none of the funds allocated are to be used for any alcohol. And that's not to say that they can't have alcohol at the event. It's just that the monies from the grant cannot be used for alcohol. I've provided a template for the grant application. Once council reviews it, and if everything is good, we will make it a fillable PDF, and we will work with the communications coordinator to make sure the information is available to the public immediately for the grant. Just a note on the alternatives. There is a change to the recommended alternative, just in terms of I've added in the amount of $100,000 to account for the amounts of the grant in the resolution, as well as where the monies would be coming from, and that would be to come from accumulated surplus. Does council have any questions or comments?
Thank you. I know this was a quick turnaround time for staff, and I really want to say thank you for making this happen. And I think it's certainly, I've been thinking all weekend what people could do with this. I mean, there could be many things. You could support business by holding your fundraiser at a local business. So I really, the sky's the limit here. So thank you very much for turning this around in a quick time.
You're very welcome. I did put some examples in the grant as well to kind of generate some ideas from the community, and to kind of give the notion as well that it's not just limited to these, that those are examples only.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fraser.
And I know it was in the full grant, but I just wanted to confirm that it could be a single event, but it could also be a series of events, like concerts every other week or something. It doesn't just need to all be at one single event.
Yes, okay.
Any other conversation? No other conversation? Okay, Councillor Phillips.
If there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the 2021 Town of Rocky Mountain House Kickstart Grant Program in the amount of $100,000 to come from accumulated surplus.
Okay, that's great. I look forward to seeing what the community brings forward. You know, and I'm hopeful that the restrictions are lifted and that they can have some really great events coming up. So, okay, I'll ask one more time, any more questions or comments on this? All in favor of the motion? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And thanks again.
You're very welcome. I just wanted to mention as well, we will be bringing reports back to council in terms of the grant allocation, so
Perfect.
thank you.
Thanks. Okay, 7.2, the RCMP Town Multi-Year Financial Plan, and I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, Your Worship. So under our municipal policing contract, every year the RCMP supplies council with a 3-year financial plan. And this has been submitted by the RCMP and has initially gone to our airport commission or committee.
Policing Committee.
Airport. Sorry, policing committee for review. The initial 3-year plan that went to the policing committee actually had a request in there for staffing. In discussion with the policing committee and the RCMP's Staff Sergeant Dinsdale, those have been removed from this financial plan. The request was 1 municipal clerk next year, a 2nd municipal clerk the year following, and then in year 4, I think it was another constable. The policing committee basically made the request to the RCMP that they look on the provincial side for the additional clerks. Because currently, right now, we have 5 municipal clerks for 14 officers, and they have 4 clerks for 16 provincial officers. So there's an imbalance there. So Staff Sergeant Dinsdale took that recommendation from the policing committee and has revised the financial plan and is now being presented to council for council's approval. One key thing to remember is that this financial plan does not bind council because it's always subject to annual budgets. So it's basically a recommendation for council's consideration at budget time. There is capital costs in this financial plan, but those capital costs are through our agreement are a pooled capital cost. So stuff like new guns and so forth, that is mandatory and it's just part of our contract.
I just want to point out to council that it was a wholesome discussion, and it was a good discussion around this. So I appreciate the fact that Sergeant Dinsdale did take those positions out. And not to say that if something should change in a year's time and our population suddenly booms and whatever, obviously we'd have to relook at that. But it was a good discussion, and yeah. Councillor Phillips?
And elaborating on that discussion we had, we not only talked about the municipal side of officers and admin staff, we also talked about provincial and federal, because there's not just the provincial side, there's also a federal side that those admin officers or admin people serve. So we asked for more information on how much time is allocated and having more information brought back to us so that we can substantiate that there's an imbalance. And Staff Sergeant Dinsdale agreed to give us more information on that too.
Does council have any questions? Councillor Auld?
Not really a question, it's an observation. For a budget,
There's not a whole lot of dollar figures actually being labeled in here. Like some of the ballistic shields, there's dollar amounts, but other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of actual dollar figures attached to anything.
Yes. So Your Worship, and that's correct, because the dollar figures really go with the position. So if the positions were in there, you would see the dollar value that really impacts the town in our annual budget. On the capital, like you say, the ballistic shields, I mean, that's the decision to buy ballistic shields is made in Ottawa, basically, and it goes through the entire RCMP force. And that's what they call pooled costs for municipal contracts. So they take how many shields they need to buy for municipal policing detachments, and that cost is divvied up between all municipalities that pay into policing. So we don't actually get to, it's not a budget item for us where we say yes or no to the shields. That is kind of a mandatory thing in our agreement.
We just have to find the money. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. We have some alternatives in front of us. Councillor Fraser?
If there is no further discussion, I will move that council approve the 2021 RCMP Town Multi-Year Financial Plan as presented.
Thank you. Any further comments? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to, 7.3. Fencing for old transfer site. Mr. Krause.
Thank you, Your Worship. So at Council's Environmental Sustainability Committee, there's a discussion on the security at the old transfer site and the necessity of putting up fencing. So Council passed a resolution at that meeting to rise and report to this meeting to approve the cost and the construction of that security fencing for $45,000, which would come out of the town's environmental reserve, and those funds would be replenished once we complete the net asset agreement with Clearwater County and the Village of Caroline.
Okay. Any questions around that? Okay. Seeing none, I'll make a motion, be it resolved that council approve installing a security fence at the previous transfer site in the amount of $45,000 coming from environmental reserves and to be replenished under the net asset distribution agreement between Clearwater County and the Village of Caroline. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Okay, thank you. So moving on to number 8.1, we have another proclamation request, National Drowning Prevention Week. Who will I turn that over to? Let me just pick somebody here. Got to get into the right screen. Oh, it came to me. I'll turn that over to Mr. Krause.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since this is swimming related, I think I'll have Mr. Amend
of
speak
course.
on that.
Sorry, Mr. Amend. Sorry, Mr. Krause. You're so quiet over there. I just forgot you were there.
I wasn't sure that I needed to attend tonight's meeting, but I guess I'm here.
Sorry, Wes.
Yeah, so I guess, to be honest, this is the first I've seen of this when it was on the agenda, but it's something that happens annually. It's one of those things through the Life Saving Society, and that just part of the promotion of pool activities. So it comes before you as another proclamation.
So rather than a proclamation, I would like to suggest that we take the week and announce, really advertise the swimming lessons that are coming forward. Our kids have been, anybody actually, all swimmers have not been able to take part in swimming lessons for a good part of the year. And so I think really advertising that the swimming lessons are back and promoting that, that's a great way to.
Yeah, with the reopening of our facilities next Monday, with the pool, I know that we have information that's, I think, went out today with regard to a lot of our summer hours and the protocols that need to be faced. But, it's key in our minds of promoting, the pool and all the upcoming activities and the swimming lessons and all those types of things that are going to be available this summer.
Mhm. So should we say something to promote the National Drowning Prevention Week of July 18th to 24th? don't know,
I
or
think
should
it
we-
can just be part of our ongoing advertising and
Okay.
promotion of all of our activities.
Okay,
Once again, do we need to declare it as a
no,
proclaim the week?
no,
It's sort of like when we talked about last meeting about the June is Parks and Recreation Month. It's like, just part of our promotion of everything that we do.
sure. Ms. Button?
Thank you, Mayor. Last year, our pool staff prepared 5 days worth of tips about water safety for this week, drowning prevention, and that can be pulled up and reposted.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Rather than doing something new, just keep,
Exactly.
reposting it.
And it was drawn from the Life Saving Society's content, which is really the national leader in this. So we'll recycle that information for 2021 if council directs us to.
Okay. What are council's wishes? Councillor Narang?
Would we just be accepting them this for information?
Or to accept this information, or do we need to ask to?
Your worship, so it'd be accepting the letter for information and asking administration to
Okay.
promote.
Two separate motions.
No, it could be.
Can be in one? Okay.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Renee, are you good with that motion?
Yes, your worship, I am. Thank you.
And is everybody, so maybe we should just have so to promote to accept National Drowning Prevention Week as information and to,
Your worship,
Yep.
would you like me to read a
Sure.
resolution that I've written?
sure, thanks.
Be it resolved that council announce that swimming lessons are back and that the pool is reopening, and that in their regular advertising that the pool staff promote National Drowning Prevention Week.
Life Saving Society standards or content?
Sure.
Yeah, the information provided by the Life Saving Society.
Is that okay with, that motion okay with you, Councillor Narang?
Feels a little in the weeds to me, but I'll accept it.
Any other questions on that? All in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Thanks. Okay, so moving on to number 9, correspondence for information. We have 9, just looking for a motion to accept 9.1 to 9.10 as correspondence for information, please. Councillor Phillips? All in favor of that motion? Carried. Action list in front of us. I just have to pull it up. Any comments on the action list? Okay. Councillor Fraser?
There's no further discussion. I will move that we accept the action list as presented.
All in favor of that motion? Carried. Okay, moving on to number 11. Does anybody have any administrative inquiries? Councillor Phillips?
I have one. I'm not sure how much of an administrative inquiry this is, but I was approached by a couple of individuals about a pump track bike park. Just to make it aware that there is a group, organization in town that's looking to create a pump track bike park. So just kind of making it aware to administration and council that those that haven't heard that it's becoming an item.
So I can just let you know that I've also been contacted by the group, and they are going to be, they're working on a presentation, and it's likely going to come to the July 6th meeting. They were trying to get it to come to June 15th, but it's just not enough time, and So right now, what they're looking at is a site first, and then they want to come to council to present their ideas of what a pump track is and give everybody a heads up that that this group has formed, and it's quite active already. So, yeah. Did you have anything else to add, Mr. Coase? No? Okay. So are you good with that? Okay. Does anybody else have any? Councillor Fraser?
The beginnings of the group did come to the rec board and do a presentation, so I can forward on the presentation that they did for us if you wanted to see the information.
I believe actually they're working on a completely new presentation for council, so, and it should be coming within the next, well, unless they really worked on it tonight. And tomorrow's Wednesday, so there still might be time for them to get the presentation in for next week's council, but it was looking like the 6th of July is when they would be here, so.
Your Worship, just to follow up on Councillor Fraser and the rec board, and it's a discussion with Councillor Fraser, which was a great idea, but the rec board is also reviewing the rec master plan, and it was suggested that that'd be a great item to go down to our youth council for review. So I don't know, Councillor Fraser, if you want to discuss it more.
That's a great idea.
I just thought that would be something that they'd be interested in, and they'd have a really strong perspective on it, and they're just closer to the ground as far as what youth are looking for as far as recreation goes. So I thought that would give them, even over the break over the summer, so they've got all of it.
Do you mean the whole master plan or just the pump track?
The whole master plan.
Okay.
I know that the rec board on the 18th is going over the rec master plan just to see what's been done, what hasn't, just kind of basically make sure that it still all makes sense and check off what's been checked off and look at whether there's other directions that make more sense. So I thought a perspective from our youth council would
That's awesome.
be great.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Okay, any other admin inquiries? Do we have any notices of motion? Councillor Auld?
I've been approached by local businessmen, and administration has. I know you've been reached out regarding the fire hydrants and testing fire hydrants for private businesses. And he's made some very valid concerns as far as ability to be notified of the changes, as well as just the safety of residents to make sure that these things are being done. So I do have a motion. I'd like to make a motion that council instructs the administration to prepare a report on the feasibility of providing a private hydrant maintenance program, possibly because of service level change, establishing a fee, but to have administration look into the possibility of providing that service.
Okay. You're good? Everybody good with that? Okay. So do we need a date?
If we could bring it back on the report on the 15th, if it's not too soon, or the next one.
Worship, if we could make it the first meeting in
July.
it'd be,
More time?
yeah, Mr. Shanks would have to pull that report together by tomorrow.
Right.
You can do it. No, that's fine, 100%.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other notices of motion? No? Okay. So with that, it is 7:51, and I will call for just a few-minute break, and then when we come back, we will be going into closed session, just for a brief while.